The Digimon trading card game has been around for a couple of years now, and in that time there's been a number of decks that stood at the top with each new format. And now finally I think the time is right. I took a page out of Lithium 2300's book and I'm putting all of those top decks in a tournament against each other. However, I've seen some people doing one-off games of this type and the newest deck always wins in the end. So to hopefully prevent that from happening, this tournament will pit 4 of these decks against each other at the same time, in the so-called Battle Royale format we devised, patent pending. If you're not familiar with it, here's the most important things you need to know. Each player starts with 5 security like in a normal game, the memory always rotates to the next player in line, you can only attack the player with the most security, and if an effect doesn't specifically target one Digimon, every opponent is equally affected by the effect. And that's pretty much the gist of it. If something specific comes up in a game, I'll be sure to mention it. Anyway, this tournament will see 32 different decks that managed to get top results at a bigger tournament. I've split them into 2 brackets with 4 groups in each, and the 8 groups each have 4 decks in them that will play against each other. After that, the winners of the 4 groups in each bracket will face against each other in the semi-finals, and the 2 winners in each bracket will face off in the finals. And of course the finals won't be a simple one-on-one match either. They will have some surprise challengers. It may be another top deck that didn't make it in the tournament, or it may be a deck everyone thought would be good, but it didn't turn out that way, so you don't get a chance at redemption here. Or it may be something else, who knows? I sure as hell don't. Well, not yet anyway. And with the introduction out of the way, let's meet the contenders. Of course we'll start with the first bracket and Group A. First up is a purple good stuff deck, I guess I'd call it. The first purple deck to ever get top results at a tournament. This particular list we'll be using was piloted by David Hsu at the Pro Play Games webcam tournament on December 27th. And he also used a small blue engine consisting of 3 mats, 3 wolf claws and a Kokaido's breath. And all of the best purple cards that were available at that time, and a bunch of them are still seeing play to this day, which just goes to show how good the first few sets were. And he managed to get 2nd place with this deck, so I'm excited to see how it'll do here. Next up is a big one, it's Lord Nightman from the BT5 format. And this particular list we'll be using was piloted by one of the bigger names in the Digimon TCG content creator sphere, namely true champion Steven himself. He managed to win a store championship with it, and also the 2nd place at a Grand Prix hosted by Top Cut event. So I'm very curious to see how it will perform in this tournament. Next up we have a Mastemon deck that managed to win the Pro Play Games Denver Regionals in June last year. It was piloted by Ethan Roche, if I pronounced that correctly. And it's a pretty standard Mastemon build for the time, nothing really stands out. But it's a well-rounded deck, so it's no surprise that it managed to win. And finally for Group A we have D-Brigade. And this list also won a Pro Play Games Regionals, one with over 2000 players. It was in the BT9 format in August of last year, and it was piloted by Edgard Benavides. And this is the top all the D-Brigade players were looking for, and it showed all the naysayers that their deck can duke it out with the big boys. That's it for Group A. Now moving on to Group B, first off we have another oldie but goodie in Green Titamon. Another list from the Pro Play Games webcam tournament. This was the 5th place finisher, piloted by Mitchell Rosado. It's a deck that wants to climb up to Titamon as soon as possible, and since everything is cheap to evolve in the deck, it's quite easy to do so, and then you just keep swinging into your opponent's security with your big 12k beater. A simple deck from a simpler time. Next up is Gabumon Bond of Friendship, or Gabubond for short. Another big name that was almost a tier 0 deck, and it's easy to see why with its capability to unsuspend multiple times and get rid of almost all of your opponent's Digimon. And this particular list is by Daniel Opiola, who won the EU Nationals with it. Following that we have a deck that most players either love or hate, and that is Yellow Hybrids. And it was deemed powerful enough to have its main card limited on the next ban list. But this deck is before that list came into effect. And it's the 1st place deck of Carta Magica's online regionals by Sam Zhou. And this is probably the most powerful the deck has been, so I can't wait to see how it does here. And finally for Group B is the top that shocked everyone, and that's Luca Serrano's D-Reaper from the Pro Play Games Otakon BT9 Regionals. And this list changed everything, because no one thought D-Reaper could be competitive until then. Moving on to Group C, to start us off we have Megazoo. And this particular list won a Tamer battle in New Zealand, and it was piloted by someone simply called Jeff. And not gonna lie, I picked this one because the name of the author is easy to remember, and also because I like his particular list. I particularly like the inclusion of Ragnar Lordmon in it. Next up is a green OTK deck, the winner of a Core TCG Evo Cup in July of 2021, and it was piloted by someone calling himself Panayotis. And I believe this was the first, but not the last time, we see a deck focusing on OTKing your opponent, primarily with the promo Grand Kuwagamon. After that we have another hybrid deck, this time blue hybrids. A deck people complained about as much, if not more, than the yellow hybrid deck, and even the limiting of its main tamer didn't do much to the deck. Instead it had to be power creeped out of the game by better decks. Anyway, this is the second place list of the 2021 World Championship hosted by Bandai. And it's another list piloted by Daniel Opiola. And the final deck in Group C is a Bill Starmon deck, and the winner of Play TCG's Nishi Fest Regionals in November of last year. It was piloted by Dashion Pashley, and at the time Calling from the Darkness was still unrestricted. Man, those were good times. And the list included some new cards that have some surprising synergy with the deck's playstyle, such as the new System on Blanc and Plasma Deckard Launcher. Moving on to Group D, we have the deck to beat during the Special Release Booster 1.0 format, and that is Blue Omnimon. And for this list we again have to go back to the Pro Play Game Webcam Tournament, and this is the deck that won the whole thing. And it was piloted by Emmanuel Mingione, at least I hope that's how you pronounce it. And it's another deck that wants to get to its boss monster as soon as possible, but this one has some devastating effects, so it's no wonder it was the deck to beat during its time. Next up we have a purple Metal Garurumon deck, and this one was also piloted by another popular Digimon TCG content creator, namely Mario of Mario's Gaming World. And with this deck he won first place in a Tamer battle hosted by Charitymon, showing he's also a good player, not just a good content creator. And speaking of Mario, next up is another deck he helped popularize, and that would be the Ancient Greymon OTK deck. However, this is not his list, but one piloted by Nathan Humphreys, with which he won TAG's Ultimate Cup in July of last year. And the final deck in Group D is another one that likes to OTK, it's Grandis Kuwagamon. I told you we haven't seen the last of Grand Kuwagamon. Anyway, this list is from Carta Magica's September Regionals, and it's the deck that won the whole thing. And it was piloted by, this person. Yeah, I give up on trying to pronounce that one. And that would be it for the first bracket. Now let's move on to the second bracket and Group E. And starting off we have the first ever broken green deck, Ceresmon. The deck was so powerful that the first ever limited cards were the ones played in this deck, those being the level 5 Argomon and Hidden Potential discard. And this is a list from the deck's heyday. It was piloted by James Arnold, and it's the winner of the US and EU online tournament hosted by the Digital Colosseum. And following that heavy hitter is a deck that abused the currently only banned card in the Digimon TCG. That's right, it's Lilithmon Loop. And if you're a veteran player, I don't have to remind you how powerful the combo of Lilithmon, Mega Digimon Fusion and Omnimon Zwart was. And this list is the one that won the 2021 Championship Finals in Latin America, piloted by Daniel Carreño. Next up is one of the favorite bad boys of the Digimon franchise, Black War Greymon. Specifically the black and red dual colored one, and it's no surprise it managed to get top place at tournaments during a format that was dominated by hybrids up to that point, considering it's one of the only cards with an effect that can delete tamers. This particular list is by James Hernáez, who managed to get second place in Top Cat's online regionals with it. And finally for Group E is a deck that also boasts a card on the limited list, but of course this is a full power version, piloted by Joseph Robinson, who managed to win Gen Con's online regionals with it in August of last year. Moving on to Group F, we have Shine Greymon for the Special Release Booster 1.5 format, probably a contender for the top deck of the format alongside Ceresmon, and this is a list that won a Tamer battle in Germany in May of 2021, and it was piloted by someone called Jam Pingul, or maybe it's Yam, considering it's Germany. Anyway, I'm not sure that's his real name. Following that we have Jasmine, a deck based around a Digimon that, to my surprise, was a lot of people's favorite. Maybe that's why they made it so strong. And this is the list that won third place in the 2021 World Championship, piloted by Joseph Reyes. After that is another fan favorite in Imperial Dramon, the DNA Digivolution one from BT8, a deck almost competitively strong enough right out of the starter deck. And it's easy to see why, with its absurdly easy to go into DNA Digivolutions that don't have very powerful effects. And the list we'll be using is from Pro Play Games Momocon, and it's the second place deck piloted by Luis Galindo. And the last deck in Group F is Wargreymon X-Antibody. This deck was left in the dust for a while, with people choosing to instead play its counterpart and the other Digimon mascot, Metalgarurumon X-Antibody. But the deck saw some resurgence recently, and it managed to rack up an impressive number of wins. And this particular list is the winner of the Pro Play Games November Ultimate Cup, and it was piloted by William Bass. Next up in Group G, we have the counterpart to the best deck of the Special Release Booster 1.0 format, that being Red Omnimon. However, this list is from the Special Release Booster 1.5 format, where Red Omnimon managed to overcome Blue Omnimon, with the addition of powerful cards like Blitzgreymon and Omnimon Alter S. It won a Tamer battle hosted by Epic Card and Games, and was piloted by Forrester Kopok. Next up is a Three Musketeers deck. We already have Belstarmon in the tournament, but this is the earliest incarnation of the deck, and this one plays more general Three Musketeers support, including Deputymon and Gundramon. And we have here a winner of Taku Regionals from December 2021, piloted by Alexander Gray. Following that, we have Armor Rush, a deck focusing on the Veemon line of Digimon with Armor Purge mechanic, a mechanic that allows you to save your Digimon from being deleted by simply removing the top card of your Digivolution stack. And since a lot of effects focus on deleting, the mechanic proved to be quite useful. And here we have a deck that won second place in the Pro Play Games TCG Cons tournament, piloted by Luis Del Villar. And the last deck in Group G is Metalgarurumon X-Antibody, the one everyone chose to play over Wargreymon X-Antibody. And it's a strong deck that can unsuspend and attack multiple times in a turn, practically finishing the game in one turn. And we'll be using a list by Gia Khan, the winner from the Saigon Digimon event in winter 2022. And for the final group, Group H, we are starting off with an Imperial Dramon from the Special Release Booster 1.5 format. To my knowledge, the first deck that had Digimon that could evolve from two different colors that aren't level 7. And although other decks may have been a bit more represented in that format, the deck was still a powerhouse. And this particular list topped the Carta Magicas Regionals in Canada and was piloted by Memphis House. Next up is the first deck to utilize hybrids successfully, that being Ancient Garurumon. Back then hybrids didn't do anything crazy, but they were still quite powerful, and they had Problem Obomon, which could cheese out Ancient Garurumon for a cheaper cost, which was quite devastating at the time. And this deck was piloted to first place by Ian McBabe. Next up we have Yellow Hybrids again, this time with some purple thrown into the mix. This is my favorite version of the deck. I think Yellow Hybrids are kinda boring by themselves, but when you throw in some purple in the mix, I'm all for it. And this list is the one piloted to victory by Martin Lee in the Carta Magicas Digifest. And finally, we have a deck that started off strong, but kinda remained silent since then. And that is the Bloom Lordmon Hydramon deck. The deck was really hyped up at the start of the format, but it only topped a couple of tournaments, and then people went back to play Grandiskuvagamon and Metalgarurumon again. But it is a strong deck, and I also personally like it, and this particular list is the winner of the TACT EX3 Ultimate Cup back in November of 2022, and it was played by Nick Edgley. And there you have it, those are all the competitors for the cross-format Battle Royale Cup of 2023. The tournament starts next month when all the decks from Group A will face off against each other. Let me know down in the comments which deck you think will win, and also which deck you think will take the whole tournament. Also, because of time constraints, there will be only one match uploaded a month, so I hope you can stay patient. Also, big shoutouts to the Eggman and DigimonMeta.com, who keep a record of the tournament results. If you want to check them out, I'll leave links in the description. And that's it for now, I'll see you next time. Bye!